on communicating love and value between different generations. All people want to be heard and understood. From the people who are now in their late teens and early 20s, to the people who are in their 70s and 80s. This now is not the death knell that it was 40 years ago. The average lifespan is now longer. People are active much, much longer. They are not immediately shuttled off into a care home when they reach 71, as was very common in the 60s and 70s, 1960s and 1970s, that is. But all people want to be heard and understood. The best markets, pubs, stores, and everything are those where the cashier or help will stop, give their full attention to a customer, regardless of their age, and listen. This is where the customers then feel heard. They feel that the employees are listening to them. They are not being toadied to. They're not getting half an ear while the guy is also talking to his girlfriend on the phone. They are talked with, and they have the entire attention of that employee. They are made to feel special. The specialness of being seen, heard, the specialness of being recognized as a unique person, as an individual. The feeling of being seen, being recognized, and of being known as someone that matters to someone else. That isn't related to you, and someone that doesn't have to feel that way, doesn't have to act that way. That is the magic of Mr. Fred Rogers. It was also the magic of the great Jim Henson too, and all of his greatest Muppeteers. Those of us lucky enough to be tail boomers, born at the very end of the baby boom. The baby boom is 1946 to 1964. That's why it's easy to remember. So those born 61 to 64 are tail boom, plus the first 2 years of Gen X, 65, 66. Got the joy of experiencing these two great men, the love in its infancy and prime, as we too were in our infancy, and then in our prime childhood absorption years. We learned, we were loved from the moment we saw our first TV show. We felt prized, seen, and recognized as valuable to Big Bird, Ernie and Bert, Oscar, Cookie, and sweet Daniel the tiger, the beautiful wee trolley, and also, most especially, Mr. Rogers, Gordon, Susan, Mr. Hooper, Bob, Louise, and Maria. Add to this the people we had at breakfast with from birth through high school, aired 1955 through 1984, Captain Kangaroo, Bob Keeshon, with the fabulous Mr. Green Jeans, Hugh Branham, as well as the various local market shows that led into that hour, or the noon hour, when, if you can imagine this, kids went home from school for lunch. We had great, loving men and women who reinforced in us that we mattered. And there was no such thing as throw away children's television programming, because we were not consumers, but we were valuable to them because we could fill up that programming hour. This was the nascent infancy of television, and they wanted us watching their channel from the beginning. What those scriptwriters, and most especially those actors and Muppeteers, did was instill a sense of integral value to each person, most especially to each child person. Children today don't get this message. There is no equivalent Mr. Rogers. Sesame Street is only for the wealthy now, since it moved to HBO in 2016. So by the time the children see it on PBS, it is horribly out of date. There is a dearth of child-friendly or even child-appropriate programming in the morning or in the afternoons on broadcast television, except for the moderate budget PBS reruns. Every child should get to grow up as we did, with Mr. Rogers, Sesame Street, and the Electric Company, giving solid affirmations of self-value and reinforcing over and over again that love is not predicated on behavior, but liking you will be. And learning all about grammar, government, mathematics, basic science via Schoolhouse Rock. The fellow who designed Schoolhouse Rock and wrote all of the music died today. He was 88 years old on 18 November 2021. He wrote every Schoolhouse Rock song and half of the lyrics. And everyone who worked with him said how much they enjoyed it, because though they were writing things for school, it was so much fun. The one they played on the radio this afternoon was I am a bill. I am only a bill. But after I go to the White House, not the White House, the Congress House, I can become a law. And then they announced his death. I cried. Because another piece of our childhoods was gone. Riding our bikes outside, that was something we could do every day after school, after homework was done and chores. We could ride everywhere. Or we could go out until the street lights come on, except for my cousin Andrew, because he shinnied up the poles and unscrewed all the light bulbs along his street. That was my cousin Andy. But we all felt special. Those men were not pedophiles, as people like to say about actors now working with children. They were not sick individuals. They too had been brought up by men and women who had taught them, you are special. You are loved. And it isn't this sick sort of love that's occurring right now in an entire generation who is not learning boundaries, who are not learning the word no. Because the most important thing about learning that you are special is hearing that you have boundaries. And when you violate those boundaries, there is punishment. Because someone doesn't love you if they don't give you boundaries. And if they don't fulfill their part of being a parent. A loved child growing up in a safe environment. Safe meaning you set boundaries and say, you don't do this. Because then it's not safe. When those boundaries aren't kept, maintained, and strong. Because then the child does not feel loved. But a loved child in a safe environment can become anything. Remember that. Peace be with all of you.